Hey everybody, welcome to Elder Geeks Elder Speak. I'm not really quite sure what day is today, and I'm not sure what game you're seeing in the background, but my name is Randy Asenchak. I'm the editor of ElderGeek.com. Today with me as a guest, I have Brendan Becker, also known more popularly as Inverse Phase, or I guess he's the only man behind Inverse Phase. And we're just going to be talking shop for a little bit because even though he and I have never worked together on anything, we have a lot of overlapping areas, I guess, is the way to put it. Brendan, how's it going, bud?
Doing good. You know, we did work together on that one photo you took of me trying to look badass and failing.
Mm.
Um,
that's
sorry
actually
to say that while you're drinking.
The funny thing is, I say we didn't work together on anything, but I think I might have. If I look back at my YouTube like long ago, I think for MagFest, I think it might have been Mag 8 or Mag 7. I did like a quick walkthrough video with like it was probably like a potato with a camera attached to it. But I did like a walkthrough of the show floor back when it was at the old hotel. And I think I used an inverse phase track in the background.
Inverse trays.
An inverse trays.
That would be like an airline joke. Inverse trays. Return them to the... Anyway, keep going.
Well, I think I used an inverse phase track to do it. And what I was doing was I was like talking with the bands that were there at the show. And I met like This Place Is Haunted. And I can't remember some of the other bands that were there. And I think I went to your table because you had like everybody has their own little tables there. And I think I went to the table and you weren't there. And I think that whoever was sitting at your table was like, well, here, take this album and
just handed it to you.
Yeah, and they were like, and then use it and let us know where you use it. And I think I might have sent you an email, but that was like 5 years ago or something.
Yeah, forever ago. Well, and if it was in those days, I was actually probably running around helping MagFest stay alive. So that's probably why I wasn't at the table, is putting out fires somewhere. But yeah.
I mean that's the way it goes with those shows. But hey, let's actually talk shop, man. Let's talk about now you're actually working actively on creating video game music, and you've also, as we put it before the show, you've run into your fair share of copyright stuff as well. And though you're not a copyright expert, you do believe you play copyright stuff on hard mode.
Yeah, I guess I do that. So I decided, well, actually, so ironic, when I sort of stepped back from organizing duties for MagFest, which was right after MagFest 9, I was like, I guess I can relax from that and focus on my day job, get a bunch of money, catch up on all my bills and everything and whatever. And then a month later, I lost my day job.
Oh, God.
And I was like, well, shit, what am I going to do? The answer was I had already released, I had released the Guilty Gear album, which is possibly what someone handed you, at whatever MagFest it was.
Might have been.
Because that was my first, foray into, being good at chiptunes, not just, writing them. Because I've been writing music for 20 plus years, just not actually good at it. And well, I don't have any music training. I can't play any instruments. So I literally sit in front of a tracker and, type music into a spreadsheet is what it looks like to, anyone that is not educated in, what a tracker looks like. And
when you actually showed it up on one of your panels at the show, and it does. It looks just like an Excel spreadsheet, but it plays music.
I can do here, we can do this for the benefit of everyone looking. I'm going to move the laptop. Oh God, this is going to be...
It's going to come in fuzzy over this beautiful Google Chat video.
This is going to look wonderful, right? You can sort of...
I could just see bars, basically.
Oops, I'm turning it the wrong way. Yeah. It looks like an Excel spreadsheet. There it is, right there. I don't even know what's loaded in. Anyway, enough of that. But yeah, the point is that I've been writing music with trackers for 20 years, and I just haven't ever been good at it until I decided to get down and dirty. And my buddy Jake Kaufman, Vert, whatever, was
Jake
like,
Kaufman, Vert the dog Kaufman.
or I don't know. I need to come up with a Puggle joke, and I'm not coming up with one right now. but like he was just like, yo, you need to sit down and you need to read the, like NES audio processing unit guide and like, learn how the NES makes sound. And it's like this 12-page long document or whatever that explains, crazy shit like, that the triangle wave goes an octave lower than all of the square waves, and the triangle wave isn't even a triangle wave, it's actually a square wave that goes from volume 0 to volume 15 to volume 0. So but because of that, you can't control the volume on it because it's already, using that volume register to create a different waveform, shit like that. So,
Yeah.
he was like, you need to read this and you'll be fascinated by it and whatever, and you'll eat it up and then you'll be on your way to making better music. And he was right. And, so I sent him a couple tracks and he's like, you're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. You're not doing this right. And I took his feedback and just got better, and now I'm at least reasonably okay at writing chiptunes.
That's awesome.
And I don't know, it just took a little bit of an impetus from someone that I really highly regard in the world of music,
Dude, that's
to just
really
get me on the right track.
I swear all roads in video game music lead to Jake Kaufman, because like I don't know if you listened to the interview I did, but I was talking with Alexander Brandon and Grant Kirkhope like back during the Louder Music Festival.
Yeah.
And Alexander Brandon, I really hope I'm not misquoting him, or even misquoting myself from my own freaking interview. But
don't worry, I'll tell him exactly what you said. Right.
I know, right? But so
we can bring him in on this hangout. Maybe.
I think Alexander, we could, but we'll try to stay focused, because otherwise we're just gonna blow this thing way out of proportion. But Alexander Brandon, I think he put out like when he did the soundtrack for Deus Ex, I think it was Deus Ex, but I think Kaufman did a remix of one of his songs, and I think Alexander Brandon was like, "Oh, this was terrible," and like kind of tore it apart. Not like didn't hate on it or anything like that, but
yeah, it's just like, oh, you got this part wrong. And
yeah,
I don't like what he did here.
He gave it like an honest criticism. Now, I'm not saying like these two hate each other at all, because I don't think that's the case at all. I think they're actually friends, But then that was before Jake was a professional musician, and then now obviously Jake is like a huge, name in the video game music industry. So I think it's kind of funny that Jake keeps coming up, and yet I haven't had him on here to talk at all yet.
He's a hard man to track down, especially now. Every once in a while I catch him on IRC.
Yeah,
and that's pretty much the best way for me that I've found. Anyway.
I met him and talked to him the only time last year at last year's mag. But anyway, let's get back on track, dude. You released you just released an album, a soundtrack recently.
Yes. So yeah, the end of the I lost my job story was just that it was the kick in the pants I needed to start chip tuning and getting serious. And so I did get serious, and I put out a soundtrack for Super Smash Land, which is actually only half of it. Splashy Goodness did the rest. And then while I was doing that, this guy booked me to do a space shooter, and that's Embraceware, and he's up in St. John's, Canada, and whatever. And while I was working on that and finishing that up, I got another, message from a guy. He's like, "Hey, I'm doing this like 8-bit brawler type game. It's gonna look like an NES game, but it's coming out, like not on the NES. And I'd love it if you'd write some NES brawler music." And that's called Treachery and Beatdown City. And I learned halfway through doing the soundtrack that it was coming out on Vita, because one of my friends that works at Best Buy that like watches the stupid, like hour-long loop on, display or whatever, apparently the trailer was running on there. And so I get this text message, "Brenda, did you know you're famous?" And I'm like, what are you talking about? So turns out there's a trailer for Treachery and Beatdown City running on Vita displays in like Best Buy and GameStop and stuff.
Wow. And
it has my music, and then it ends on the title screen, and it says right at the bottom, "Music by Inverse Phase." And the guy is a pretty awesome dude. I've enjoyed working with him. He has a very specific idea of like what he wants in his game, and that's not necessarily a bad thing. But obviously it presents challenges to the composer, because it's like I'm trying to nail exactly what he wants. And so we get some go back and forth, but I've met the guy in person. He came to my shows, and
oh, cool.
Stuff like that. I played I/O in New York, and he he came to that show and like videotaped one of my songs or whatever, and we hung out and we talked, and like just over Christmas this past year, a couple weeks ago, whatever. I guess about a month now.
Yeah, I can't believe it's been a month already. It blows my mind.
Anyway, so I was like, hey man, let's finish this up. He's like, okay, we're only gonna do one episode for now, and I'm gonna try and raise the money to do the rest. And he's funding it out of pocket, but hopefully the next 2 episodes he'll be able to kickstart. And in the meantime, I just put out the soundtrack for episode 1. It's not out yet, but we're hoping that maybe like the my music mojo of some sort will come out and like encourage people to be like, oh yeah, these tunes are really stuck in my head. I want to play the game. So we're hoping that people will go to the website based on that. And I sold like 25 copies of Sharpie CDRs at MagFest of
nice.
Like the whole thing and whatever, and just put it up on Bandcamp, and it's doing okay. It could stand to do a little bit better, but I think the game doesn't like exist yet, so like it runs. There's some cool screenshots and videos of gameplay on his website and whatever, and it's neat to see that come together.
Cool.
I didn't get my previous soundtrack, Shuttle Scuttle. I got some gameplay videos and stuff, but I didn't really get as much as I've been getting with Sean, this guy.
Yeah.
On Shuttle Scuttle, is a bunch of haphazard emails of like, needs to be heroic, energetic, you're saving the world, it's you against them, and I really like Blaster Master, Batman, and 1943, and go. Like, here's the title screen. Like, and
nice.
I mean, that happens to composers all the time and whatever, and I wrote him what I thought was that, based on his feedback or whatever, and he was like, more of this please. So
wow.
It worked out, like, I mean, all it's just kind of a, it's a weird client relationship that you have sometimes with your peeps. And I'm sure all the game composers you talk to are going to say the same thing. Like sometimes they send you, like storyboards, and other times they just say nothing at all. They're like, just match this song. And you just don't know what it's going to be.
I think in almost any creative field you kind of run into that, though. You run into the people that are like, "Oh, I know what I know what I like, and I know it when I'll see it," kind of thing. Or in your case, I know it when I'll hear it. And or the other thing would be like, "Here is exactly what I want, and just make it." Yep. So there's like, you run into those two creative boundaries: the I'm being micromanaged or micro designed into whatever, or I have no idea what they want, and I'm spinning my wheels dozens upon dozens of hours, and I can't satisfy this person.
My favorite thing is when Jake explains his email chains of like, not the person that's the game dev, but just like the project head or whatever is being like, hey, so the noise in the song that goes like twoop twoop, can you make that like tweep tweep instead of twoop twoop? And like trying to explain in like some sort of non-music term, but
they use onomatopoeia in the freaking email. I love it.
Yeah, and you get these like, and he's anyway. It's hilarious and sometimes very entertaining and sometimes especially frustrating. But I love writing music, so it's a lot of fun still.
Cool. Well, speaking of writing music, you like a year and a half ago, I think a lot of people will know this when they hear it. You released the album Pretty Hate Machine, which is an 8-bit remastering of Pretty Hate Machine by Nine Inch Nails, which was their first studio album. Is that the best way to say it, like a remastering, or would you call it?
I guess you could say a demastering.
Or
Well, some people use the term demake or demix. I used to use the term retro cover a lot, just because that kind of sounds cool.
Yeah, because remastering, you expect them to like retrack everything,
like making it better.
Yeah,
and whatever. And actually, there is a Pretty Hate Machine remaster, so that adds extra confusion to the pot. So I usually sometimes I even just avoid like an adjective to describe like what it is or what it did, and just call it like I mean usually like I think the tagline for the longest time was Pretty Hate Machine is Pretty Hate Machine reimagined on 8-bit computers and consoles is how we put it, and so it's not even like reimagined kind of work. I don't really even care. I mean, the colloquial term among our people is chip cover.
Okay. Yeah. Well,
You know,
we
like
got to
just
we got to be groovy with the vernacular here, you know.
yeah.
Okay.
So I mean, it's a bunch of Nine Inch Nails chip covers.
Right,
You know,
right.
you
Now,
want
when
to
you
call it.
did that, you did it. I mean, YouTubers like me have been running into this whole like copyright problem recently, or I guess it's
Yep.
we've been caught in this YouTube dragnet of copyright issues. I haven't been dinged too much. I got dinged on like a couple of videos. I think like maybe like 6 videos I got dinged on, which is really good considering I know people that had like literally half of their libraries caught.
Yeah.
And it's always on stuff like music. Like every time, it's always music that gets caught in this stuff. But anyway, you did not ask for forgiveness afterwards. You asked for permission ahead of time to do this album. So it wasn't like you were just like, okay, great, I remixed or I made this this version of
Yeah. Hey, I did a thing.
yeah, hey, I did a thing. Hey, world, here you go. You went and you did the full legal route of getting permission from. God, was it Rooster Records that did that?
It was Bicycle. Bicycle is the label, and then Rebel Waltz is the management or the former management. They switch
Okay.
managers. So now it's I think it's the Silva agency. Don't quote me on that, except this is a recording. But like.
But the short of it is, you did the legal route. You
The
went.
long and short of it is, yeah, I called Rebel Waltz and they told me to call Bicycle, and I called Bicycle and they told me to call Rebel Waltz, and so I did that about 37 times, and then eventually I sounded pitiful enough that the secretary that picked up the phone at Rebel Waltz took pity on me and transferred me to a very nice guy that was like, hey, so what's your deal? And I told him my deal, and I was like, listen, I've just been a Nine Inch Nails fan for a really long time. I know Trent is into like vintage synthesizers, and I've seen pictures of his cave, and it's fucking crazy. And my cave is not fucking crazy, but I really love like old school sound chips and stuff like that. And every time I listen to Pretty Hate Machine, every time I listen to really any music, like every once in a while there will just be an instrument that stands out and be like, oh, Atari bass, oh, Commodore Sawtooth,
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
just like I don't listen to music like other people do, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. And so I thought that, like my unique perspective of playing video games and being addicted to them for all of my life, and like being able to mix that into my music finally at last would be a really cool one-off idea for the Nine Inch Nails album. And so I was just like, I'm just going to do this, and I want to let you know that I'm not trying to be an asshole, and I'm not trying to milk the Nine Inch Nails name. I just
Right.
like Nine Inch Nails, I like video games, and I feel like Nine Inch Nails people would really be into chiptunes if they just kind of like heard some Nin, and that like chiptune people would possibly get into Nine Inch Nails
Yeah.
if they like heard some Nin that was chiptunes. And like basically everyone hated me when I announced the idea, except for like my friends and fans and stuff.
Because
Like,
they were thinking
I
along the
got
lines of, why aren't
flamed
you
on
doing this
every
free?
forum. Yeah, well, there was that. There was like, I could do this album for free, but then there were also people that are like, you're gonna ruin my favorite album, and then there were
Oh
also
my
people
gosh.
that are like, why don't you do something better than Nine Inch Nails? And then I mean, like, it's just like I attacked from like every angle, and I was just like, fuck you, I like Nine Inch Nails, and
I
I'm gonna
love
do
that. Why
a
don't you do
chiptune
something
Nine
better
Inch
than
Nails
Nine Inch Nails?
album. And Trent is like probably one of the most amazing composers that I have ever met in my life, and I'm lucky to even say that I have met him. I'm like is incredible to think every day that he's following me and very possibly looking at my dick and fart jokes. I mean, like,
He might even
he
be laughing at
probably
him.
is way too busy to do any of that, but the point is his Twitter icon's Robotron 2084, for Christ's sake.
Well, maybe like his assistant was like, hey, you want to hear a dick and fart joke that that Inverse Phase just posted?
Tweeted. Check out Inverse Phase's latest joke. It's awful. But I mean, more like Ninverse Phase. I don't. Anyway, it's like, the point is like, I just I saw the intersection, and I was like, there are too many great things that I can do with this. I'm just gonna go for it. But I don't want them to think that, I'm a jerk that's just, like taking on, like a big path of tribute albums. And,
Right.
you know, there is nothing wrong with, and I'm not labeling the people that are doing, like lots of tribute albums. Like there's the Rockabye Baby guys that are doing like lullabies of like, 20 different artists. And then there's the
Yeah.
Vitamin C label, which does like string quartet of, like almost the exact same 20 different artists and whatever and everything. And I think that shit's great. But I felt like my idea was just very pinpointed to people, maybe not exactly like me, but close enough that, like they would just get exactly what I was going for. And it turned out that everyone got what I was going for
Right.
once I put it out, but not
Yeah.
before, just once I put it out. They had to hear it first. Like they didn't give in until they heard it. And that's fine, whatever. I'm over it, but it was a very interesting ride. So finally, the guy at Rebel Waltz gave me permission to finish off that story. He was like, "Yeah, you're not going to sample anything. That's good. You're not going to use any Nine Inch Nails, intellectual property. That's great." I told him, I was like, "Listen, out of respect." I even changed the names of the tracks because I don't want them to be confused with the original, because who hasn't, well, I'm going to date myself by saying who hasn't downloaded a track off of Napster that's like Metallica playing some song that isn't Metallica and isn't even that song, or like
Right.
unknown artist track 2, or whatever. It's just like, so I'm not about stealing market share or anything, and you have to pay for the licenses whether it's free or not. So it's like, well, I'm going to charge for it, so I might as well, make it my own, so to speak, and whatever. So I went down that road, and Bicycle eventually told me to just, go to HFA and license everything. And I was like, all right. I was hoping that I could, like strike a deal with you guys or something like that and not have to pay like hundreds of dollars of fees.
Right.
It's like approaching $1,000 just in fees. Like not even like, and by fees I mean like, underwriting, not the royalties or the licenses. Just like, we're going to give you this license, but you're
Right.
going to pay $15 for the ability to receive this license.
Can
And
I
it's
ask you a
like
more detailed
$15.
question about money, if you don't mind?
Yeah, sure.
When you do it, like, do you have to pay per track? Like, when you, like, if you wanted to just do Sin, do you have to pay per track, or is there any like option where you can do like the bundle, the entire album? And I guess sub question to that, like, just to do the rights of it, how much would it cost to do a cover per song?
So, what it works out to, if you like, if you long and short it with like packing the fee into the price and whatever,
Yeah.
is it works out to a dime per track sold per
Okay.
medium.
Okay. So it's like a percentage then.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it works out like the way HFA works it anyway is, and like the statutory license rate is like 9.1 cents.
Okay.
For an up to 5-minute song.
Okay.
And then every minute after that or whatever, you have to pay like an extra 2 cents or, 1.6, or I mean, it's something like that. And
That's
so,
totally interesting, man.
So you can, and on HFA, they have improved over the years, but I still think that the website is stuck in the dark ages. But I mean, like, you can create like a shopping cart of the entire album and then say, apply this to this type of download and apply this to this kind of download, and that sort of thing.
Right.
But I mean, the way that all of this is calculated and done is very antiquated and like very, I don't know, if the entire experience feels like cobbled together and like you're going down a dark alley trying to just like license something and whatever. And there are way better ways to do that, like you're probably familiar with Louder.
Yeah.
But I mean, like, and there's another service called Limelight, which is like songclearance.com.
Yeah.
And I believe what they do is just go to HFA and do it for you. and then come back to you with a final number so that you just don't have to deal with HFA and you can email someone and say, hey, doing a Pretty Hate Machine album, need all those tracks.
Right.
And then they'll just give you a number, instead of because like I said, the HFA site is just, not fun at all.
Yeah, you actually, you held a panel at MagFest, which is where I heard, most of this before, and you had the unfortunate time slot of being like, would you start at like 10 in the morning on Saturday or something like that?
Yeah, hangover o'clock.
It was exactly. It was like Hangover 30 that we were rolling in and we were listening to it, and it's a shame because that was honestly one of the better panels that I got to sit in there and listen to. I listened to some other panels and it was a lot of self-back pattery going on, and it was like, yeah, I'm not really learning anything about this except for that you love yourself.
I tried to make it as interesting as possible because I figured if someone's going to show up at 10 a.m. for a panel,
yeah,
better I better say something good.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just, I wanted to make sure that I got across the point that, you're paying not only per track, but you're also paying per distribution method. So for Pretty Hate Machine, I have 30 licenses.
Yeah.
And like a lot of people don't think about that. So like I'm losing isn't really the right word because, I'm making money on the album or whatever, but off of each sale like if someone buys a CD, so you go to Bandcamp, right? And you're like, hey, I want the CD. So I'm selling you the CD, but Bandcamp bundles the download. So you're getting a download and a CD. You're getting 2 copies of my album. I have to pay twice. So, and then you probably listened to the album like before you picked it up because you wanted to see if it was any good because no one thought it was any good before I, finished the Kickstarter or whatever, or at least finished part 1 of the Kickstarter. Need to finish the rest. But so you have used one of each of all of those 30 licenses that
right.
I got just in one purchase, and it's like so I had to buy, I bought 1,000 CD licenses, 1,000 physical, way over 1,000 streaming licenses.
Wow.
And the streaming licenses are cheaper; they're not a dime or anything because there's no, the person is not holding on to your copy, so those are a lot cheaper.
When you say streaming, does that mean that you are personally hosting the files on your end, or does Bandcamp host the files?
Bandcamp hosts the files.
Okay.
But since I am the one that did the cover.
Yeah.
I am responsible for every single time someone streams the track. Got ya. Understood. After a while, you just throw your hands in the fucking air, and
Yeah.
And that's one place that fortunately, I think I'm on, especially on the digital downloads and the CDs, even though you're nicking $2 off of a CD sale, at least I can recoup that in the price of the CD, or whatever. And if you only download it, that's naturally everyone makes downloads cheaper than CDs, but that especially helps me in this arena also because I'm only having to pay for 10 licenses instead of 20 when you just download it and that sort of thing. So I'm only down $1.50 instead of $2.50 if you download it instead of that. So I made the price lower accordingly, so that I'm making about the same off of each one. That doesn't really account for the time or all the materials or any of that stuff, just how much I can. You don't have your stuff on YouTube yet, but people can. Oh, go ahead. But I do have I have a CeeLo parody I did up on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
But that is almost that is venturing into the fair use category because I rewrote the lyrics and typed them out as if Ines was typing out the story to a video game that doesn't exist and whatever, and synchronize that with my cover so that everything could come out right. But that's actual parody work.
Right.
The other stuff, I label it as parody because a lot of people think that chiptunes are funny or whimsical, I guess might be a good word. But that can qualify, but is probably, kind of that gray area. And I mean, the the thing that you heard at my panel, but everyone else watching probably didn't, is that, you know what, even if you're totally in the clear, even if you license something, even if everything went your way, if you piss them off, they're going to sue you, and you can't stop that.
And yeah, and they'll find a
So
way for it to have been like that you missed something somewhere along the lines, you know?
even if you didn't slander, or, I mean, like,
That's true.
you
Yeah.
could, it's like, even though you are making, you can argue that you're making a commentary on the original track, or you are providing your opinion, through that, or, you can call the free speech, you can call anything, but, like,
Yeah.
when it boils down to, I mean, like, free speech means that, you have the freedom to say what you want, but it doesn't mean that other people don't have the freedom to say you're an asshole back. And sometimes they do that in the form of lawyers.
Right.
Uh,
Right.
so, you know, uh, so you could get sued for anything. And, so that's one of the reasons that I do the permission instead of forgiveness route, to make a big loop, is because, I want to talk to people and be like, yo, not an asshole, like your stuff, been listening to it since I was 10.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, absolutely.
and then they're like, oh, that's cool. And, like, I mean, you get varying responses. Trent obviously was cool with it. I talked to Kurt Harland, who is Information Society, and, like, I sent him an email. I was like, I want to do a What's on Your Mind, the Pure Energy song. I want to do a parody of that. Is that cool? And he's like, why are you even asking me? Just go do that. Like,
That's kind of cool.
he's been around the block, and he wants to see it when it's done, and he likes the Game Boy sound better than the Atari sound that I'm going to use. But, I mean, like,
Yeah.
whatever. And, other people are like, just as long as you pick up a license, you're cool. And, I mean, like, it's just, it really does vary from artist to artist. And a lot of them ask me to give it away for free even after I've licensed it.
Do you think
And
do you think
stuff like that.
do you think that the artists are more liberal with their use of like who can cover their stuff versus like their label? Because like right now what YouTubers are kind of running into is like, we will get permission. I will get permission from EA. I will get permission from Ubisoft. I will get permission from Square. And they'll be like, yeah, please review the game. Send us a link when you're done with it. We want to know what criticisms you guys had said about it. And, even if you give them a negative criticism, they'll be like, you know what? Thanks for taking the time. Thanks for reviewing the game. I don't think I've ever had anybody come back and be like, you gave us a bad score. We're not going to work with you anymore. But later on down the line, you might get dinged by the music company. And even though you had permission from the game company, whoever was holding the label for the music, they're the ones who were a little bit more vindictive about protecting the intellectual property.
I think it's definitely a weird, like, it's a weird game that you play. I think most of the artists, like, when you're doing tributes and covers and whatever,
Yeah.
Honestly, I think most of the time artists are honored.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, if someone did a cover of, like, one of my originals, I'd be blown away. Like, that means they liked my song enough to try and do something with it.
Yeah.
It doesn't even matter if they sucked at it. It just matters that, like, I'm by no means a big composer or whatever, but I mean, like, that's pretty cool, like,
Right.
people are showing the love, and there's no reason that you should put the kibosh on, people showing the love.
Yeah. True.
And the only thing that really gets in the way is when someone realizes that they might be losing money because someone else is showing the love. And I think that most of those people are just misguided in that they don't realize what's actually going on. Like, I think that, like, in covers, they just instantly jump to the conclusion that, someone is trying to do that song and redo it better,
Right.
and have that the cover be the definitive version of that song. And, like, most tribute or cover artists or whatever, that's not their goal at all. They just want to, like, show people that they love this song, and often that just rekindles other people's love for that song, and they
Right.
go and, whatever. But, like, the lawyers or the labels or whatever, they don't realize that, and, they've just got dollar signs in their eyes, and, Like that's all they want to do is, like find out a way to milk a little bit of extra money out of this. And in a way, it's their job to milk money out of that for the artist. The artist
That's
hired
true.
them,
And they're paying
to
a
do
lot of
that.
money for
But
them to do that too.
yeah, but the artist, I think most of the time the artist would make an exclusion for things like this. It's just that it's not explicitly stated anywhere, or it
Yeah.
is, and the artist just glazed over it in a contract or whatever.
Right,
And
right.
like so it's a really tough situation. And then there's the people that don't that don't write their music up at all. Like there's ASCAP, right? And you can register your music with ASCAP, but if you don't register your music with ASCAP, you can't license the music. So like then that creates another gray area where, like I can't figure out who to pay to do specific songs because no one registered,
Yeah.
their music or whatever. And like in Japan, especially, video game companies, Konami is a great example. They will not register it under, the Japanese version of ASCAP because they want to reuse the song in a later title.
Oh, huh.
And if they did, and they did register the song, then they would have to pay themselves royalty to reuse it in the game. And like there was a big deal about that. So like like Bloody Tears appears in like every game ever, right? So
right.
like
And,
they would have
Vampire
to pay
Killer
themselves
and stuff.
every time and create some sort of like bureaucratic red tape loop every single time they did something like that or created a different version or whatever. And like, so I mean, there's reasons that people won't do things, and there's reasons that people will, and there's reasons that it'll be gray, and there's reasons that it won't. And honestly, I just think that anything that perpetuates the fandom of something, should be cool. But again, permission doesn't hurt. But if you can't get a hold of the person, then just like do the cover, shove it in their face, take it down if they don't like it or they don't want you to do it or whatever. I mean, it's not like, Alex could have just said, "Hey Jake, take your cover down." I don't think he did, right? So
no, I don't think that was the case at all. No.
Then he was obviously still honored by the fact that Jake did it, even though Jake didn't do things that he would have done and made choices that he wouldn't have made.
Yeah.
So
I hope I told that story right, by the way. After I'm done, we're doing this review, I'm going to go back and listen to that Alexander Brandon interview.
Oh,
that interview was forever, too.
Alexander Brandon. Yo, Alex. What did you think about Vert's Deus Ex remix again? We'll see if he
stir in the pot. Stir in the pot. Thanks for that.
He probably won't respond at all. I'll be like talking to Randy.
Oh crud! I had a legit question I wanted to ask. Oh, I remember now. Hey, you had mentioned when you released the Pretty 8 Machine, you intentionally changed the album titles or the track titles, which I think has become
track titles and the album titles, yeah.
But I think that's become like the norm for people who are doing covers or remixes. Outside of
or parodies or whatever. They're trying to I mean, I think people have just grown to. I don't know if they're doing it for the same reason I'm doing it. I'm doing it out of respect, but I mean, it could be said that if you change the titles of the albums, I mean, puns are funny, right? And funny means parody,
right? Yeah, that's true. That does put you into that loop.
I mean, so like maybe people are trying to get like into the fair use loop where they're like, oh well, whether I'm charging for it or not, it's a parody, so it doesn't matter. It's fair use,
right?
And like, and I feel like if you do that, you're sort of, like without talking to them or, doing it out of respect or, like not doing a respectful job, then you're kind of being an asshole. But, like you may be within your legal right. I don't know. I don't want to take that chance.
Yeah. Fair use is not like a legal shield in any regard. There's been a very, very few circumstances where fair use has been like,
spot on.
We'll say that again.
I was going to say spot on.
Yeah.
It was intentionally written to be vague.
Yeah.
Like the idea when they wrote it in 1976.
Right.
Like they actually wrote it with the intention of being vague. They wanted a law that would be vague so that you would have to be taking a case to court so that you would have to, interpret it on a case-by-case basis, and
Right.
I don't want to play that game.
No, I
Just,
totally understand.
you know,
Yeah. Yeah,
um,
I haven't heard of it yet, but I don't believe any YouTuber has gone to court over anything yet. Right now everybody's just getting dinged by Google because Google doesn't want to get involved in the legal crap at all. If they take down your channel and take down the video, then Google doesn't have to worry about it at all.
yeah,
But anyway, back to my question was,
yeah.
after you paid for the rights, you even changed the names and everything like that. You posted it up on, I think you said you posted it on iTunes, and iTunes was still coming back.
The iTunes debacle. Oh God.
What's like, what audio matching software was it that caught you, or that was saying that your tracks were the original tracks?
So here's the deal. Since I'm obviously doing like pretty much direct covers of Pretty Hate Machine,
Yeah.
I changed the track times a little bit because I had to, namely because like some of the consoles, just have specific like timings that you have to end the track on a certain track boundary or whatever. And I
Yeah.
mean, like, I could slice and dice the track to get it exactly right. And I did do it in one or two places to get the transitions between tracks exact.
Right.
And that came out really well. But the point is that even though the CD is like 2 or 3 seconds longer than Pretty Hate Machine, which I thought would be enough, it's still 10 tracks long, and the track time is still close enough that iTunes thinks that Pretty Hate Machine is Pretty Hate Machine when you put it in the drive.
That's crazy.
And it's because it uses CDDB and nothing else.
Is that why. So? That's what CDDB does for? Is they do it by track times only?
It adds up all of the tracks. It like divides it by the total tracks, and then it runs a checksum. And
that is
the
crazy.
Checksum. And it's a stupid ass checksum too. It's like a CRC 32 or something really short, not like a SHA1 or like something that you would use with a torrent client to make sure you have the right file or know, something like that. So anyway,
back in the day when CDDB came out, it was a pretty cool system. You popped it in your machine, and
it was cool. It's like, oh my god, it knows what CD I put in.
Right, yeah.
But now there are better ways to do that, and I think one of the key better ways to do that is like Music Brains or something like that.
Right.
And all of my Linux clients, the reason I typed in all the tracks and I put it in my CD drive, and I tested all my Linux clients against FreeDB and all the other databases and whatever, and like just tried to get them to detect the CD wrong.
Right.
It didn't work, and I thought I was in the clear, and it turns out iTunes is just too dumb. And it like so I start getting reports after the CDs go out. The CD shows up as Pretty Hate Machine, so then I get a slightly miffed gram from Bicycle Music that they're like, this is a great project, this is really neat, thank you for sending us a copy, by the way, can you fix the track titles? And I was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, I changed the names of all of the tracks and everything. They're like, we put it in our Mac and it came up as Pretty Hate Machine. And I was like, oh god. And it's just like, boom.
You weren't in trouble at that point, but it was still like a cold sweat moment, I'm sure.
So I contacted the iTunes guys because like a bunch of people were saying that iTunes was not detecting my CD right. A bunch of people were saying that it was detecting my CD right. And then the iTunes guys are like, well, first of all, there is no iTunes programmer department. Like, you cannot reach a coder at Apple.
Why am I not surprised by that?
Well, I'll tell you why, because they're not writing code, they're copying it. But like the point is that you just can't, you can't get anyone at Apple. So eventually I called I forget what it was, like the iTunes legal department of something or whatever, and I explained my situation. They're like, send us a CD, and they lost my CD.
Get out.
And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. Like, just tell me if it works or not or whatever. And they said, nope, everything's fine. So I forwarded that email to Bicycle, and they're like, well, obviously it's not fine. And so I talked to CDDB, and I was like, can you at least separate the record? Like, apparently at one point, my record for Pretty Hate Machine got merged with Pretty Hate Machine in the database because someone thought it was a bunch of typos.
Oh.
So then there was that. And then so it's like just this wild conglomeration of like all the problems culminating in one spot, which is basically, my sanity. Uh, and like
That's crazy.
just everything went wrong at once over this dumb little issue. And what I ended up doing was I did get CDDB to separate the records. I did get, like I told the iTunes guys, I was like, listen, I am like possibly under some sort of legal fire here if I don't do something. Like, if you're only going to use CDDB to detect CDs, can you maybe encourage future versions of iTunes to like, pop up a dialogue every time to, like
That says, hey, this matches
on
multiple
CD
albums.
detection or whatever. Well, it's supposed to pop up and do that, but it didn't on certain people's machines, possibly because they already owned Pretty Hate Machine and they had already put it in there, so it just thought it was that disc again. But like, you'd think that it would be simple enough to just write a little piece of code that says how long exactly is this CD, what are the track arrangements,
Right.
and then if it doesn't come back with its own internal database, then go out to CDDB to fetch the tracks.
Crazy.
Or something like that. But it doesn't do that because it's not a very smart program. So
long story
sorry,
short is
Apple.
everybody out there needs to update their stuff between licensing people and iTunes. Everybody needs updated software.
Yeah, update iTunes and tell it to repull the track list, and it gets the tracks and whatever. And I think that was enough after telling Bicycle, every step I went through. I think that was enough to appease them. And if not, there's nothing really that I could have done about that. Like, I mean, there's probably some other CD out there that has, like the same number of tracks and it's the same length as Pretty Hate Machine and doesn't have anything to do with it. And, like the reason that they were miffed is because, like in fair use, where it's like, are you trying to steal, consumers away from the original work? What is your, I think the wording is, what is your work's effect on the market share of the original work is what it is. And like, market share could be interpreted in a very weird way as like, oh, well, he's putting in that CD, but it's, like getting detected as Pretty Hate Machine. People are going to think that's Pretty Hate Machine. He's stealing from us. Or, I mean, like some weird, stupid ass backwards way of thinking. But I could see how someone would, possibly get that idea, or a lawyer would get dollar signs, or, I mean, there's, it's complicated and stupid. It really is.
Well,
let's just
recap then. Let's do a too long didn't watch. One, you just released an album for your for what's the title of the game again?
What I just released was Treachery in Beatdown City Episode 1. The soundtrack EP, because it's not the entire game, so it's not the entire soundtrack.
What's that available on?
And that is up on everything that I have is up on Bandcamp.
It's up on Bandcamp. Okay, and then 2, it's always better to ask for permission instead of asking for forgiveness.
Ask for permission instead of forgiveness, because then you won't get sued. Hopefully.
Hopefully, and if you don't know the legal route of doing all that kind of stuff, there's always alternatives like Louder, Limelight.
Limelight, yes, or songclearance.com is there, because Limelight is the name of some other service too.
Yeah. And if you're in the case with like me, if you're a YouTuber who's hoping to get some copyright coverage, you're kind of SOL.
Yeah.
You can
pick some originals or use the stupid audio ID whatever it is. If you're just using songs in the background and nothing else, then you can always do that, like replace my audio thing.
I ran into this recently, and this wasn't even just with something that I had. I would love to just swap out an audio file of some of these that got dinged, but the really crappy thing about YouTube services right now, they say, hey, you can swap out your audio file, but here you can only use this list of pre-approved albums and stuff. I would love to be able to just take my original file, pull out the offending tracks, and then just re-render that audio file and send them a new wave or a new MP3 or something, and be like,
and they don't let you do that.
They don't let you do that. It could be that. Yeah. It could be that simple. It could be that easy, but they don't make it that easy.
They need a Staples button.
They they do. They need a
Boom,
staples
that
button.
was easy.
And then the
I
other
just
thing that
totally
really
shit
bugs
on that
me,
button.
the other thing that really bugs me is some of these companies that do it, like say Nintendo or Nintendo is like the big one, where like they'll be like, oh hey, 20 seconds of your video, we caught the audio of Super Mario World or whatever. They don't just take 20 seconds worth of revenue from your video or anything like that. It's literally just
It's all of it.
100%. It's
Yep.
all like, you know. Oh well. Oh, well.
Sorry, you get an ad, and all of that money goes to Nintendo.
Yeah, all that. It doesn't matter how many hours you put into it. They get all the 20 cents you make off of that video goes right to them. So, yep. Hey, thanks for popping on, dude. We've been kind of batting this back and forth for like 3 months now. We finally had a moment where our schedules synced up.
Feels good.
It does. It's cathartic.
Feel free to, like, bug me again, and I can talk about not copyrights or, I don't know, upcoming albums, play you guys some exclusive samples, or get you something to...
Are you working on anything fun right now, or that you are allowed to talk about?
Anything fun?
Or are you working on anything you're not allowed to talk about?
Well, so I can say that there might be more Nine Inch Nails in the future.
Cool.
I'll leave it at that. I can say the guy that I wrote the Shuttle Scuttle music for, he last year he booked me to write some puzzle game music for him.
Cool.
And so he's going to be bringing out a puzzle game like summer-ish. I don't think he's sure on a release date, but hopefully it'll be sometime this year. And also, he just like reworked his toolkit. So like he used to be like an iOS Mac shop, and he just ported Shuttle Scuttle to Android, and using a toolkit so that he can release for all 3 platforms at the same time. So the puzzle game will come out for all 3 at the same time, and whenever that is, I'll have the soundtrack finally up, and you can hear my 5-minute, 16-second non-looping magnum opus.
Nice.
That I had to write for it because he wanted a 6-minute track for the background music, and since it's video game music, it can't loop because it will loop.
Right.
So you have to write 5-6 minutes of original material that does not loop before that point.
Yeah.
So anyway, but I've been told by several people that it's one of the best things that they've heard out of me. So I'm really excited.
That's great, dude.
For that's really good. Got like a glowing review from STEMage, Grant Henry.
Nice.
So it's always nice when like the king of turning Metroid into prog tells you that like your little puzzle prog pie track or whatever is sounding good.
STEMage, by the way, who I met for the first time this year. That dude is tall. He is way taller than he looks like on video or in pictures. You look at him and you're like, yeah, he's probably about.
He's a little bit of a beanpole.
Yeah, he's like, what is he, like 6'6" or something like that? He is really tall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool
anyway.
Guy, awesome to talk to and hang out with and whatever, super friendly.
Yeah.
But
cool.
But yeah, so he told me that was good. So puzzle game for like Android, iOS, Mac sometime this year. I don't really know when. Beatdown City sometime this year. The game, not just the soundtrack. And then I just met, like formally and properly met. Insane Ian, the Nerdcore, like parody comedian guy.
Oh yeah.
He lives in Baltimore, and so like we
just
did pizza like before I jumped on with you, and I'm gonna do a little bit of work for him.
That's great, dude.
And he needs some backing tracks that are like chippy, so that's fun.
Nice.
And maybe someday, like possibly first, I'll finish. I've got like my Pretty Ape Machine final Kickstarter reward that I need to send out to like all the people that backed me at the higher up level.
That's like the super tier level. Yeah.
Well, I've got some T-shirts, but like I wanted to do something really, really special for like the people that paid more than like, or $20 or more or whatever for Pretty Ape Machine, which is not actually a super high amount of money, but like I've got like a metal tin and like some clear plastic stickers for the album cover and whatever. I'm going to do a 16-page booklet and like really just make it look nice. And there's going to be 7 extra tracks
Very cool.
In addition to the 10 original Pretty 8 Machine tracks and whatever.
Yeah.
And it's just going to go out to those guys, and then Bandcamp will just get the special edition tracks, I guess. But
Awesome.
like the tins are not going to anyone but the Kickstarter people, which is neat. But I need to fucking finish it. That would be nice.
Yeah. All right.
So that's my other goal.
Do it, man. We should probably wrap it up. We've been chatting for a little bit here. Brendan Becker again from In First Phase.
Oh.
All of his links will be in the description below for Bandcamp. For what else do you want thrown up down there?
Let's see. There's my Bandcamp.
We could do Facebook and Twitter.
It's Inverse Phase with no space everywhere I am. So there's a Facebook, there's a Twitter. I have a Tumblr where I ramble.
Dude, you have a Tumblr? I'm jealous of people who have Tumblr accounts.
I can't log in. It won't let me log in for some reason. I don't know what's wrong. I can't figure it out. But I do have a Tumblr, and I will ramble more and probably paste a bunch of stupid animated GIFs of myself or something like that if I ever figure out how to log in again. I do have a Google+. No one cares about Google+, but I do have like 200 plus ones or something like that on there, so it means something, right?
Yeah.
I guess.
Yeah, the guys at Destructoid like swear by their Google Plus accounts, and I'm like, really? And
I've actually been getting some pretty good feedback and comments on there, so
yeah.
I'm gonna pay more attention to it if I can. I do have my YouTube channel. I update it whenever the hell I want, not every Tuesday or anything. But hopefully some cool parody videos and maybe some tutorials will go up there soon.
Awesome.
Do I have anything else? Oh, I should pimp my Patreon.
Yeah, dude, do it.
Hi, I'm Smooth McGroove, and I have a Patreon that's making tons of money. Except I'm not Smooth McGroove, and I'm not making tons of money, but I would sure love to make tons of money like he does.
Yeah.
Maybe if I got as good at music as he is. No, but I do have a Patreon. I'm trying. For me, 2014 is going to be the year of the release.
Nice. Good
I'm
for you.
going to try and get like something, even if it's just a single, something every month. And so, to encourage me to do that, I set up a Patreon page. You can pledge whatever the hell you want. It can be 50 cents or $1. It can be like I actually, and whether it's a paying track or a not paying track. Like, people are using it for YouTube videos. Obviously, they're just making money and releasing free YouTube videos.
Right.
I'm releasing music, and I kind of expect to be paid for it. But if you're a patron on Patreon, say that 5 times real fast, then you can then I will give you whatever it is for free anyway. And if you pledge at $4 or above, I will even give you the albums. Also.
Nice.
Like,
Nice.
So I'm including albums and singles as the same, not the same tier of rewards, but the same type of release. I call it per release instead of per single or per album.
Right.
But I'm hopefully I do some cool like behind the scenes things. And I'm a real drink freak. Like here's my SodaStream bottle, right? Or I learned how to make homemade balls. Which is the energy drink, by the way.
I'm raising my eyebrow at that when you said that.
I've got like weird stuff. Like, can you see this? This is Limca. It's like a lemon lime, but more lime soda from like India, or I just get like weird drinks all the time. So I got an idea for one of my Patreon tiers. If you back at like. If you pledge $64, I will literally every single time I release something, I will send you an extra of whatever energy drink I'm drinking, and we can like crack it open on Hangouts or something.
That sounds
together.
Cool, actually, doing a simultaneous.
It's stupid, but it's fun.
But it's also original.
I'll send like some really weird stuff. Like I'm not gonna just send you the new flavor of Monster or something like that. I'll send you like. I think somewhere around here I have like Cesar Chavez energy drink. I haven't tried it. I'm a little scared because Steven Seagal energy drink was awful. Um, tasted like carbonated dirt.
Sweaty hair.
I gotta stop talking, or we're never gonna end this. But yeah. So the Patreon is a really fun thing that I hope to turn into something cool, and I'm gonna turn some of that money into like. I want to create a cool visual thing for my laptop, and possibly even build my own custom instrument, so that hopefully, since I built the instrument, I'll know how to play it, because I can't play anything else.
Right.
So that would be nice, and yeah, so I'll probably try and milk some of the Patreon money for that, and I mean, obviously, maybe also keep myself alive a little bit. That would be good.
Yeah, paying bills and feeding
Get some
yourself
pizza
is
every
always
once
good.
in a while.
Yeah,
pay the energy bill, so I can keep my computers on and writing music.
And heat, because
Heat.
you're not always sitting by your computer to warm yourself up off the processor.
Yeah, definitely not. So yeah,
right.
I think I covered pretty much everywhere you can find me. You can honestly just Google the hell out of Inverse Phase and find a whole bunch of things, and find one and talk to me.
Sounds good, dude. All right, man. Hey, thanks for hopping on. Catch everybody later.
Yeah.